Next is legal services, undesignated fund balance. Oh, I didn't realize this was on the agenda tonight. There are two orders relative to the bid. Do you want to, they really go hand in hand. Do you want to take them separately or together?
They're actually on they're both on the table, and I thought
That's
that we
right.
had tabled them until this meeting.
That's
so
correct.
I would move that we bring the petition pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, to establish the Northampton Business Improvement District, and the, I don't know if it's a resolution or order to authorize Mayor Higgins to enter into the MOU with the Northampton Business Improvement District off of the table.
Okay. So the motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah.
In bringing them off of the table, does that automatically put them before us, or do we have to make another motion?
I think they're already in first reading.
they
You
were-
tabled them in first reading.
They were moved and
We can't
seconded.
have two motions before us at the same
Interesting.
time.
So I would just move the first, then. I would just bring the first one off the table. I'll amend my motion, you're correct. I'll just amend my motion to just bring the,
Why can't you bring both?
You've often brought two
we
orders
moved them
together.
both, I know that.
Motions at the same time.
You often vote on more than one thing at the same time. You're
Well, if they're all part of the same motion,
Yeah. Well, we moved,
not two motions. You divided it up into two separate motions.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's fine. I mean,
we didn't move the MOU until we had tabled
correct.
the
All right.
bid.
I asked you to do it, but you didn't do it.
Second, too.
Yeah.
It's coming back to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to move the first one and then move the
I
second?
would just move that we bring the petition pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, off of the table.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion on moving that off, back into discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it is in first reading? Okay. And it's open for discussion. And I told you I wouldn't cut you off.
Yep.
It's the public discussion. You're going to vote, you vote or not tonight.
I want to talk about what I want to hear is
Yeah, you can talk right from there. It's time to talk. You don't have to go to the podium
why not?
because we're not in a public hearing. We're in council discussion, and it's your turn to talk.
Well, I don't want to be cut off now, so make yourself comfortable. I was very much disapproving of what the hell I want to say. I think we should never have brought this before the council because to me, it's money that we could have used in another place. For instance, I've talked to Councilor Dossel, and we know that there's some cuts you're making, and it's very hard. Like the Board of Public Works, there's 10 positions you're going to eliminate, and that's hard for them. I don't think they can operate with 10 missing in the wintertime. And I think to take the money to support what they want for the beautification, I think is wrong. I think it's very much wrong. I went to the school meeting last night in West Hampton. I never seen so many people up and roaring about this. And because the 48 people involved with the schools are being losing their jobs. And if we could kill that project of beautification, what I call it, maybe we could save some of these jobs. Maybe we could do something for the Board of Public Works. That's where I'm coming from. I think it's a disgrace. Then I think back of the landfill. People living there with the smell all the time. We can't do nothing, we ain't got no money. And people's water is tainted. Why, we haven't got no money to help them, but we got money to beautify the downtown. I don't object to it, but I think the city shouldn't pay for that. If they want to do it, let them do it themselves. And I think it's very wrong to us to give up this money when so many of our employees are getting knocked off. That bothers me, and I think it should bother you too. And I think it's very wrong to do with this. If it was good times, maybe I would change my mind. There's no good times anymore in the city of Northampton. We're in deep trouble, and we're not going to come out of this for a long time. I asked you about it. You says another year it'll be another 3 or 4 years before we got out of this. And this is where I'm coming from. I get it from some people the other day to stop me. We're going to have trouble paying our taxes. I said, well, don't worry about it. If they beautify the downtown, you can go down there and smell the roses. I said, it's a shame to do that project knowing the people in the city of Northampton is hurting. And it's my job to try to help them, not to take money to beautify a thing where the money should go helping the needy in our wards and our city. And I was hoping some of the people would change their thoughts like I have. I don't think you'll live this down. I don't think you'll ever live this down, Claire, because people have got you marked. Because you started this, and people don't like what you did. You spend money all the time. Spend money all the time. We haven't got enough money to help people out. Do projects. That's what bothers me. If we could hold off on this, with the good times, I wouldn't have no objection. But now the people are hurting bad. Hurting bad. A woman goes to the store, she only got a little bag. She says, I used to get a big bag. I haven't got no more money, I got kids to feed. And we're going to knock her husband out of the job. But we're going to have a beautiful place on the Northampton. I don't think we should do it. The chamber should do that, not us. The chamber should do that, not us. These people belong to the chamber. They should rally around the chamber and do this instead of us. And it's very, very bad for us to even think of doing this. I plead with you not to do this, because there are too many people that are hurting. You know what we're in a deep problem right now, depression. I've been through 2 of them, and I know it's bad. I know it's bad. And I can't see some of the people having to live through this, because it was a bitch for me to live through it. I did everything in the world, and I don't like to see this happen to our city. We're giving our city away. Now, they tell the Board of Public Works how to plow snow. That's not their job. We got the Board of Public Works. Things like that bother me. And I'm sorry to think that you would support such a thing as that, knowing there's so many people hurting, And I thought maybe I could convince you guys to think about your ward, the people in your ward. You know some of the people in your ward are hurting bad. What can you do to help them? Because there's no money left. There's only a little piece left. How many jobs could you put in for that if you saved that money? Maybe 4 or 5.
Absolutely not.
Huh?
No.
How many?
We're pledging about $35,000, which may be one job. Maybe one job.
Yeah, but this is
coming out
for
of-
a year. It's going on and going on.
You asked me about how many jobs. We only hire a job in 1 year. It's about one job. And we are taking it out of the parking fund, and it's work that it's, I think, worth it to do it. But you don't have to convince me. You have to convince your fellow councilors. I don't get to spend the money without your authorization. Council has to vote on it.
Well, I feel so bad about this, knowing the people in the city of Northampton are going to get hurt.
That's why it's here for you all to discuss.
Yeah. And I hope it could, just, if it was good times, I could maybe see it. But a guy come into the police post office, says, I just lost my job. I said, what did you do? You get fired? No, they cut. Cut 3 positions out of a job where they had 8 men. Now, what are you going to tell a guy like that? Don't worry about it. We're going to have some flowers downtown, and it's going to make it beautiful for you. The guy don't give a damn about flowers. They give about taking care of their family. This is bad. This is bad. I would say, as a counselor, I'd beg you to change your way of thinking, to help out. If it was a good time, I'd support it. But we cannot do it. Cannot do it.
Counselor, may I address something with you? Because I'm upset too. And I'm upset that if this is framed as a vote, that if I vote for this, and I think there are fair arguments for the bid against the bid, but quite frankly, I'm upset that you frame this as a vote for the bid is about people either keeping jobs or losing jobs, because that is just not what this is about. If there were a bunch of people downtown, business owners, said, you know what, we're going to tax ourselves and we'll give you a choice. We'll either tax ourselves and we'll save 20 teachers' jobs or whatever it would be, or we'll tax ourselves and we're going to do this downtown business plan. I think we'd have a debate about that. I don't know which way I go. I think I'd probably go with, let's save jobs in the school, let's put the money towards DPW, let's help out the needy. But that's not the frame of the issue. And I hear you're upset, but I'm upset too that the way you're framing this for us and for people at home is just not what this is about. There are very fair arguments on both sides of this. But I would like to address one of the things you're saying, people out of work and all of this going on, and that what the city is doing, and you're begging Claire not to spend the money. As we pointed out, we are spending very, very little money on this, that this money is owners downtown willing to tax themselves and paying the vast majority of all of this that will be going on there. We are not authorizing major amounts. We're authorizing a very minor amount of city money. And when you bring up other things that were already talked about last week, and I know that a couple of your constituents stood up and spoke about them, but we addressed things like they are not going to be dictating to the DPW how they plow the streets. That was already addressed very clearly last week. So I know you're upset. I appreciate that, because it's an upset that I think is genuine and concern. But I'm upset that the framing of this debate is one that is not what this bid is really about.
Well, I'll tell you, Paul, it's too bad it's just times like this, and we're not going to get over it. Not in 1 year or 2 years, maybe 3 or 4
Counselor, I understand that, but this bid is not about
And let them
the city
finish this
spending a lot of
discussion, and
money.
then you.
I'll tell you one time, when I was a council president, Dave Mazzani was mayor. He come to me and said, Ray, I want to put this position in, and I want you to canvass the councils, see if I got the votes. I said, I'll do that for you, Dave. Well, about 2 weeks there, after a little past that, we were in front of the city hall. He said, Ray, did you do what I asked? Yeah. How's it look? I said, well, Jack Fitzgerald says he will never support your candidate. He said, who else? Me. He said, why, you so blankety blank. Oh, he gets really upset. He said, you go back and tell Jack Fitzgerald how I feel, and tell him I'm going to appoint the most liberal guy we have in the city. And I'll tell him for you, Dave. So I went to tell Jack Fitzgerald what Dave told me. He said, you go back and tell Dave, a wounded bird will always flutter. That's what he told me to tell the mayor. And this thing, I can talk all the time, but I've been with some good counselors, and I think some of them would agree with what I'm trying to say. But maybe the times have changed. I don't know.
They might agree with your vote against the bid. I'm just saying the way in which you framed it for us and the public, I disagree with very respectfully, because I don't think that is what the vote is about. if you vote against this, you don't care about losing jobs and what the city isn't. This is not about the city spending a great deal of money to plant flowers downtown. That's just not what the vote is about from my perspective.
Well-
There are fair arguments on both sides. I don't think that's the debate.
Councilor Reckman, Councilor Bardsley, Councilor Mary Ann Labarge.
Yeah, I'd also like to say, Ray, that I think you framed it unfairly in terms of saying this is the mayor's idea. It is not. This is an idea that came from a group of downtown business people who went to all the work to realize a bid could be formed. They've been good citizens for many years, and the initiative for this bid, I believe, came solely from the business people downtown. And we're lucky to have business people who want to pay more money in with a modest contribution from the city to address just the kinds of problems that the city can't address because we have no money. You're right, times are tough, and we have no money at all to spend downtown. So to have this group of downtown property owners who have voluntarily come to us and said, here's what we think would help downtown, we want a pittance from the city, and we'll put in all the rest. That's where the bid came from. I don't think it's fair to say that it was the mayor's initiative in any way. I think the mayor has been appropriate by recognizing that since the city will have to collect the money to draft an MOU with the bid, which I think is a fairly well-drafted document, but I think that the initiative for this is not the mayor's. This is not the mayor's idea. She may support it, I don't know, but she didn't start the idea.
For
I
the,
heard the story a different way.
for the record, I support it. I brought it before you. I support it, sure.
Right, she did say that.
Yeah, I did. I support it, and I'm upfront with the things I support. You know, Councilor Labarge, you know my opinion on every issue. I don't keep it from you. If I, right?
And I won't let you get away with it.
I
I'll go
know.
after you too.
Fair enough. Councilor Bardsley.
I have some questions around the wording of the petition, and I would like the city solicitor to come forward, so if we could recognize her. So move that we recognize the city.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I've been listening to her all day. Opposed? Yeah, it's all right.
Always good to see you. You have a question, and while you are asking your question, I am going to pass out my third memo on the bid.
This is one we have not seen,
This is a new one, and this,
so I don't know whether or not it addresses
It
my
might.
question.
Do you want to have 5 minutes of quiet reading at your desk?
Yes, we need some
Okay.
time.
We'll take 1 minute of quiet reading time. It is big print.
Yes.
It's also a short document. Could the city solicitor simply read the document?
That'll take some time.
It's not, it doesn't take that long.
I'll summarize it. You've been recognized.
Yeah, that might be helpful also.
I think if she just read it to the record so the public at home could hear,
That's fine with me.
it's not that detailed. It's not that long.
at the last city council meeting on February 29th, the opponents to...
February 19th.
Sorry. Maybe you should read it.
Read it.
The opponents to the bid petition questioned the process used by the assessors and the city clerk to determine if the bid proponents had submitted the necessary number of signatures to bring the bid petition forward. I have reviewed the statements given to me by the assessors and the city clerk, and I am of the opinion that the assessors and the city clerk used procedures which were in compliance with Chapter 40 and the Massachusetts state law. The assessors began with a list of properties within the proposed bid district. The assessors checked each signature presented to determine there was a signature for each designated property. As stated by the assessor, the purpose of the review by the assessors was to verify that each parcel connected to an address included a signature of assent. As the signatures were presented and matched to the parcel ID, they were checked off on the bid district list. The principal assessor signed a form stating that the 60% threshold required by the bid statute was met. The petition and signatures were then forwarded by the assessor to the city clerk along with the assessor certificate identified above. The city clerk stated to me that the following procedure was used by her to verify that the bid petitioners had met the statutory requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40O. On December 10th, 2008, Ann Burke, Daniel Cuso, and Attorney Fialco filed the petition to establish the Northampton Improvement District, along with signed assent forms. As part of the bid packet, there was an assessor certificate certifying that the bid signatures submitted for review were consistent with the block and parcel numbers within the bid, according to the bid data spreadsheet from the assessors. On January 5th, 2009, a letter of complaint was filed by Ellen Scheinman in regards to the process used by the assessors for certifying the signatures. I, the city clerk, asked for clarification from the assessors on their process of certifying, and the assessors submitted another letter on January 5th, 2009, stating that they had reviewed each property involved with the bid program and checked to see that each parcel on the bid data spreadsheet had a signature, and that they did not witness each person signing, but observed that each parcel had a signature. I, the city clerk, then took each assent form to make sure I had an assent form for each parcel that the assessor certified to. I then did a certification that the bid signatures that were submitted for review to the assessors were consistent to the block and parcel numbers within the bid using the information from the bid data spreadsheet. That was a statement from the city clerk. Ms. Massa also required and obtained separate written statements from property owners authorizing signatures that were not the signature of the listed property owner when she had some questions. The procedure that was used by the city clerk is the same process that the city clerk has used in the past to verify petitions. It's a process that is in accordance with Massachusetts state law. And just to add less note to that, some of you remember when we did the Smith Overlay District, there was a zoning question before the council, and under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, 20% of the people who were inside that overlay district could come forward and ask that the council not take a negative vote or put it on the ballot. This procedure that the city clerk used when she was determining that 20% is exactly the same procedure that she used here. It's a consistent procedure that she uses. When you bring in your nomination papers, she doesn't check to make sure that she knows your signature. She checks to see that your signature is there and that you live in the ward. And that's what she's always done, and that's what we've done in the city for a long time. So,
Councilor Bartley.
On the petition that we're going to be asked to vote on in this motion, on the paragraph labeled number 2, it referenced the improvement plan, which is exhibits identified as Exhibit C. So when we vote on this petition, we are also voting on the improvement plan?
if it's part of the petition, and I don't have the petition in front of me, but I believe that the improvement plan is part of the petition, you have one choice. You can vote in favor, or you can vote against it.
It's all or nothing. And we can't make changes.
You cannot make any
So I
changes
just want to clarify that.
according to the statute.
Different things have been said over the discussion period, but so the improvement plan is basically part of what we're voting on this evening.
That's correct.
Okay. Then moving to the improvement plan, under number 7 of the improvement plan, where it says city services, and it's broken down into 3 categories. And in A, it makes a reference to baseline services, and those are covered and will be covered under the memorandum of understanding. And then B is baseline plus, and those are identified as items. So the baseline plus items are part of the petition. So
My
when,
understanding that that's part of the petition, and that's what you're voting on.
yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Then I want to make sure I understand some of these, because once we vote on this, that's it. I mean, they're for the second vote if we pass it. So we have agreed to all these, and I just want to make sure that I have a clear understanding of what each of these items mean. Item number 1, it says fund the Northampton bid at $35,000 annually. And then item number 4 is contract with the bid to execute and manage the trash barrel pickup program by pedal people. And then it goes in that in a little more detail. I interpret that as being 2 separate items.
You're actually right. I misspoke the other night.
Okay, so they are 2
Yeah, they
separate
are.
items.
I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't have the documents here. That was not a meeting about the bid when I spoke about that at the Finance Committee. The last Finance, I want to clarify for people. This came up at the last Finance Committee. I conflated the two because I didn't have my documents here, and I apologize. They are 2 separate items.
Do we have a cost
It's
number?
it's about $35,000. That's why I conflated them. Okay.
So,
Both of them are coming out of parking.
yep,
Nothing is coming out of the general fund. The $35,000 approximately that we spend on the pedal people includes the cost of the actual contract with them, the bags and so on that and the trash barrels and so on.
Just a question, isn't number 4, aren't what we essentially doing in that number 4 is turning over the administration of the trash program?
And the cash that goes.
So we're giving the money that we would spend, right, that we're spending right now on pedal people.
I conflated the two the other night.
Because
I
right now,
apologize.
the parking director is the person who executes the
He manages
contracts and all that.
And the other thing that goes along with that goes to number 5 is that there's a credit at the landfill which has a value in a year, but it's a lost revenue value. Okay?
because I read them as 2 separate
Yeah,
items.
I
and I had heard,
apologize.
okay.
Yeah.
The, moving down in letter C, rules and regulations, there's one simple statement there that I would like you to tell me what it really means, because I'm very.
You're going to have to tell me what it says because
will.
I don't have it in
The
front.
city will, well, actually, there's a typo in it apparently, but it looks like it means that the city will not impose additional rules and regulation upon the Northampton Business Improvement District or the Board of Directors for the bid as defined herein. So when there is like this restriction, it seems to me like a restriction on the authority of the city. It said the city will not impose additional rules and regulations.
I think actually that's an equal protection argument. They're saying that they want to be subjected to the same rules and regulations as every other parcel in the city, and that they're not going to be special rules that the city is going to impose on the bid properties as opposed to everybody else.
But, so you're interpreting additional as meaning special as opposed to not having any more rules?
Yes.
Okay, so if we wanted to do an ordinance that was covering all of downtown, for example, they wouldn't say, well, you can't do that to the part of downtown that's covered by the bid. It can only be for the part of downtown not covered by the bid.
That's correct. That would be my interpretation, that they would not have the right to say to you that you can make, that you have to make special rules for them.
It refers to the section of the legislation that the city council may impose rules. We're just saying we're not going to do that.
Okay. I've had my assistant here help me to find the section, and under Section 5, the Board of Directors, in the bid statute, it says that the local municipal governing body may establish rules and regulations governing the bid Board of Directors, and what that sentence is saying is that we're not going to make any special rules for the Board of Directors.
That's what I thought it was about. My understanding, and since I'm the one who worked on this MOU, is that there was a considerable concern by some of the BID members that the city would play a heavy hand on the governance of the BID, and that was what this was directed to. Is that a fair assessment of that? But you bring up another important point, and I think there is a separate issue around the equal protection that's not in here, because you give no authority up. You give no authority up as counselors to pass any ordinance that you need or want to pass affecting downtown. There's no special exemptions.
Well, my concern is that may be clear to everybody who was involved in the writing of this, but move this, 5 years, 10 years down. I don't see that in the language. When I look at additional, that means to me any added rules or regulations. And it doesn't just say to the Board of Directors, it says the district. So that's where I'm getting.
You can't have, let me, if I could
Yes,
just
it
answer.
It says upon the Northampton BID or the Board of Directors for the BID, but the BID district is not the same as the BID. There will be non-members in the BID. A non-member building could be right next to a member building. This is about the BID as a corporate organization. That's all this is about. The BID district, it doesn't call out the district by name here. It doesn't say district.
It says the Northampton BID Improvement District in the.
Okay. But it's using it in the nomenclature that it's the corporate entity. That's the way we're interpreting it. If you think we need a footnote to clarify that, that's fine.
I mean, essentially, this is an opt-out clause of Section 5 of 40O, which is saying the local municipal governing body may establish rules and
Correct.
regulations governing the BID Board of Directors. And we've essentially, and at least the petitioners have put forth that the city will
Right.
not exercise that right.
Councilor Bardsley is pointing out that he still has the floor.
Okay, sorry about that.
Could I just answer Councilor Bardsley on that? This is a state law, so it cannot take away any municipal authority that you have just because someone comes into the bid. And if you brought it to court, it's my judgment that that a court would say, of course you can't take away the municipality's right to govern law, to make rules and regulations. We as the legislature have given you that authority, so we're not going to give it to you and take it away.
In this agreement, is this forever, or is there a timeline on this where it would expire?
The MOU?
As long as the bid is in existence, is this improvement plan and our obligations under that, or does this?
There's a process to change things. It's in the statute, and it depends on what change you wanted to bring about. If you give me a minute, I could probably find the
Counselor, I could just direct you to number X.
Thank you.
It says that the improvement plan shall be updated at least once every 3 years. So they're required to revisit it every 3 years and update.
Is the process for updating that explicit in the statute? Because I don't think I have the statute. I don't know if you were given that copy.
It is available on the web.
Let's see. I can read it for you. Let's see.
I think Mr. Yakuza is asking to be recognized. Is there anybody who's willing to recognize Mr. Yakuza, who has done extensive looking at
I'd be
this?
happy to make that motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd be happy to yield the microphone.
Would you answer specifically this question about updating the
Yeah, it says within 3 years, which means it could be any timeline. It also says that changes up to 25% of a specific part of the budget can be changed with a 51% vote by the members of the Business Improvement District. Obviously, as times change, the City Council is also going to request that certain changes be made within the MOU, whether they're better times or worse times. I think that is also a potential change. So yes, there is the possibility of change within the MOU, and there certainly is with a 51% vote on the part of the bid members that changed.
Well, that's what I want clarifying, because it's not really answering the question I have. What in the improvement plan, it can be changed by the bid board of directors.
Right.
That's who changes the plan. It's not that we have a role in the change, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
That's what I was clarifying.
May I clarify from the law itself, from the statute? Amendments to the bid improvement plan which provide for additional improvements, program services, or expenditures which affect more than 25% of the total project budget, incurring indebtedness, changes to the fee structure or management entity, or changes to the district boundaries, shall be subject to the approval of the local municipal governing body, provided, however, that said governing body, after a public hearing, determines that it is in the public interest to adopt said amendments. I think that
So we would
says that-
bring, right, we would bring it before the city council, again, in another petition, a petition to change more than 25% of any part of the budget. Anything less than that would be a matter of vote by the
51%.
51% of the members. So if there was more than 25% change in the total budget or any expenditure
Okay.
in the budget,
But because it's not in here, you are still governed by 40-0.
we're still governed by 40-0.
Right.
Right.
And that's still at the initiative of the board of directors of the bid.
Which
The
includes,
change is
you're
at the
making change.
initiative, but the permission.
I realize that.
Yeah, but the authority for permission comes before the council.
and there's a representative of the city appointed to the board of directors of the bid.
Yes, as one of the property owners. That's part of the composition of the board of directors.
I'm just trying to get a clear picture of how this operates, because, and I think what Councilor Ray Labarge was referring to is we're going in very difficult economic times. There are some references here to things that we're going to be, by agreement, legally have to provide. When this was written, and I think you said you've been working on this for 2 years, so when this was initially conceived and written, it was a different economic environment than we're currently in now. And knowing that we're headed into not only hard decisions this year, but down the road, I'm just a little concerned that we may be taking on obligations that may seem kind of constraining in the future. I don't know, but I just wanted to know what our responsibilities were and what options that we have if we wanted to change it. But most of the changes I'm hearing quoted is at the initiative of the board of directors.
Just to follow up for a second, could someone summarize the obligations in the bid that the city
I want to
is-
give Councilor
Okay.
Barnes, he can answer the rest of his questions.
It was kind of a follow-up.
Well, but he's got the
Would that be
floor.
okay if I asked that kind of a follow-up, if we could summarize, what are those obligations, even in the current bid, which, as what I'm hearing you say, is I'm concerned that maybe those could even go up in future years. Was that where you were leading?
What's the obligations are the ones that are in the petition are the
Right.
ones that are spelled out in the improvement
Right,
plan.
I just thought it might be helpful for the public, too, to hear
And
those.
that doesn't mean, then
That
there's
future
another,
ones.
well, no, there's another set of obligations in the memorandum of
That's right.
understanding. There's 2 sets.
That's right.
Right, and
So-
if we could have summarized kind of the total of all of those and what they are, that might be helpful.
May I, just because I was part of the discussion.
Councilor Bardsley has the floor.
No,
I think they
I
are
like
the
that.
same set. Just,
There's 2 different lists. There's a
Right.
there's a baseline list, and then there's a baseline plus.
but the baseline plus is based on the baseline list. In other words, so.
That's correct.
All that is if you look at it, for the most part, is repetitive of what the baseline is. Because the baseline services are in an entirely different section that was written by the head of each department. The baseline the baseline plus are almost identical in what the city is negotiating as an MOU.
I think there's an important point, and I think Councilor Bardsley has made an important point around we're going into hard times. If you look at, under the MOU, section 2.3.1A, it says that we can diminish baseline services as long as we diminish baseline services
Equal.
on a par with how we've diminished baseline services across the city. So in terms of budget cuts, we're not precluded from making budget cuts that affect the bid as long as they affect the bid equally with the rest of the city. Yep.
Now, that is because that is in the memorandum of understanding.
Right.
That only applies to the baseline services, but not baseline plus, because
Yes, it
baseline
does.
plus is in the petition.
Baseline Plus is also in the memorandum of understanding.
it covers-
And the petition is moot without the MOU, which is why you have to take 2 votes. Am I correct about that? We need 2 votes. We need a vote. You don't have a bid unless the city signs an MOU. Because you don't have anybody to, you don't have.
Well, we don't have a bid because the statute says that the city has to collect the
That's my point.
fee structure,
That's
and
my
so.
point. So,
But other than a couple of points within the MOU, well, a major point, collecting the money and dispensing it, but seriously, the other items within the MOU, we could go forward without. We don't want to because our agreement with the city is based on fair and just.
I'm not making it, I'm not addressing, I'm trying to address your point, which is there a difference between the baseline and the baseline plus? The fundamental issue that I tried to get to with this MOU was if we had cuts, we would have them equally across, and that we have language in the baseline plus additionally that says if there are exigent circumstances, we can also reduce those. And the third piece is, as a member of the board, if we need to make changes, we can bring them to the board and ask for a board vote, because nothing that we bring forward is going to be more than 25%. So, but fundamentally, if you don't vote, if you vote for the bid and don't vote for the MOU, there is no bid. They go together. Okay.
Well, and I don't know if we need to bring back the city solicitor for this question, but.
Well, why don't we bring her back?
Since you made a reference to the memorandum of understanding, can we suggest changes in that? That hasn't been agreed to yet. You said this is to give you authority to negotiate it. So that hasn't been done yet, according to.
My understanding is that the petition was based on a draft of the MOU and that we can't make changes in the MOU. That's my understanding.
I think that,
That the fundamentals.
I think that Mr. Fogel disagrees with that. I think he thinks that you could change, is that right? You could change the MOU?
Under exigent circumstances.
Under exigent circumstances, not the one that was put before the petitioners. The petitioners signed with an understanding of a baseline and a baseline plus. And you always give me authority to negotiate, but you're being showed ahead of time of what has been negotiated. That's that's a
this is
form
a
of
done
language.
deal then.
That's the form that the language.
So the petition and the memorandum of understanding is a package.
That's correct.
Okay. And, in the various discussions that I've had with people supporting this, I don't know if that has always been clear, but that's fine. Because I was told that we're just voting on the petition, not the memorandum of understanding, but it is a package deal.
I think.
So,
Well, okay. I thought it was pretty clear, but you still have the floor.
Okay, no, I'll yield it this time.
I don't even remember who was next. Mr. Councilor Reckman?
It's been very clear to me since the first discussion that the MOU and the bid were peas in a pod.
Other questions for the city solicitor or general discussion? You're in a general debate and discussion now, so you don't, in fact, I'll ask Janet to sit down. We'll keep going. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll have one more.
One more question for the city solicitor.
Thank you. I guess this is a follow-up. In the same way that we've clarified now that state law does not take away, it does not allow for any taking away of municipal authority in regards to ordinances in the governing this piece here. I guess a related question would be, it also doesn't require us. There were definitely some issues with the bid document, the plan, that many of us had some problems with, and that was regarding the language throughout that referred to curbing panhandling and lobbying with the city, working together with city officials to enact legislation that would ban prohibited panhandling activities in certain locations, is regulate the practice. It's my sense that because that's in the document, that does not require us, and we had a lot of discussion that that because that's in the document, it does not require us as a legislative body to enact those. We're not under any obligation then, because that was a concern.
In fact, it can't require you to do that.
Okay.
That was what I was trying to make.
And the reason I bring that up is because it became clear, I think, over the last number of months that there were many public concerns with issues of that, and I think that was heard. I really feel like that was listened to and heard by many of the proponents, but the reality is documents can't be changed at this point. But I think that there's an understanding that that piece of it has been rethought, and there's no expectation that the city will bring that forward again.
And all that document really said was that that would be the preference of the people running the bid, that you would work with them on those issues. You can still work with them on that issue and any other issue, but nothing in the bid can require you to pass any legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, okay, so we're back to general discussion unless you have do you have another, no, okay, we're back at general.
She explained it also because I had concerns about the soliciting of
Right.
it, and with Attorney Bill Newman coming forth and telling us to be very careful with that language, and that we really shouldn't support that language. But since I heard what you had to say, I feel a little clearer with that.
Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yes.
And then Counselor Dostal after you.
Yeah. I've been hearing, and I know, Mayor, I've talked with you about this, the parking.
Yep.
Okay, where the money is coming out of the parking funds. That is not taxpayers' money, is that correct?
Well, I mean, it all belongs to the city of Northampton and the citizens of the city of Northampton. It's not doesn't come from property taxes. It comes from the money that goes into the meters and goes to the garage downtown. I just want to talk for a minute about that, because out of that parking meter reserve fund, we pay for all of the cost of the capital improvements to the parking system. We pay for all of the people related to the parking system, including them. I'm looking at Chris to make sure I don't miss anybody, but the parking meter, parking enforcement officers, Mr. Latender, the maintenance people that work out of that system, the folks that collect the tickets in the collector's office, are all paid for out of there. In addition, we pay for a DPW worker out of that, or one or two. Three or four. I think we went up. We pay for 4 police officers as well. We also buy 3 cruisers every year out of parking meter reserve money. So we're spending a lot of that parking meter reserve money to support the general fund. Those police officers we would not be able to afford if we didn't buy them out of the parking meter money. Now, $35,000 that we've pledged in parking meter money is not coming out of the property taxes that are paid. While I understand that we are looking at some jobs in the city, the auditors won't let me spend that money on something that's not related either to parking or the district in which it's collected. We can spend it on the bid. I can't spend it on a teacher. Okay, I have to be very careful about that. So I think it's a reasonable expenditure. I also would point out that the bid is planning on hiring people to do work. This will be creating some jobs downtown, which I think is a good thing.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? Maybe?
Well, like I said, I receive many calls. I've talked with people up in the Florence area where apparently they're hearing that the 5% of the added taxes, okay, that the
bid fee.
The bid fee on it, okay, where the owners themselves are going to be paying that extra 5%. Apparently, what was happening is somehow the information got out there, and I was getting calls, people saying to me, what is happening here? That homeowners, us taxpayers, would have to pay that extra 5%. And I had to explain to them that is not true, and I don't know where that information was coming. Their main concern also now too was hearing about the extra $35,000 I did explain about the pedal people, also the $50,000, which we've always taken care of the Academy of Music. That was something that we had voted on, which was the upkeep of the building, the heating, and that's our job to do that. It's a city building. People are questioning about that extra $35,000. And I think it's important that the public really knows it's not taxpayers' money, because they're being told that their taxpayers' money is being used on that $35,000 that the city is giving to the bid.
The city is giving $35,000 from the parking meter reserve fund. Could we use it for something else that's parking related? Yeah, but the care of downtown is part of what helps our parking system be healthy. The parking system is helping fund police officers, DPW workers, cruisers, and the parking tickets help pay for general fund costs. We make about $900,000 on parking tickets, and I don't want all the merchants to get mad at me. But if downtown is successful, our parking ticket revenue goes up, and I can use that in our budget. If our parking meter reserve is successful, that money goes up, and I can help use it to pay for more police officers or more DPW people. So there's an investment that will have a return to the city in my mind.
Okay, also, another question.
Yep.
Which I'm hearing about the equipment.
Yep.
Okay.
I've had a couple questions about the equipment. We currently own a vacuum that you voted to buy out the last year of the lease. We bought a vacuum to do the lots. Mr. Latender and I have been talking about a sweeper, which is different than a vacuum, which you can actually sweep the sidewalks. We had been talking about that anyway, not really for the downtown sidewalks, but for some other parts of our system here. As a part of the bid discussion, we talked about buying that. It would not be exclusively for use for the bid. It would also be available to the city, for use. And we can use it for other places in the city that we need this work to be done.
So then it would still be our equipment.
That's correct.
Not the bid.
No, it's our equipment.
That's another thing that people were hearing.
We're going to store it, we're going to take care of it, and the bid is able to use it to sweep the downtown streets.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, I'm glad we clarified that piece of equipment is ours. Now, on the price that we have at the $35,000,
For the sweeper?
No,
I mean, you're back to
the pedal people, the
Right.
trash bags,
Right.
the compactor,
Right,
total that up, okay, which is in section C,
right.
okay, but up on here, it says the fund bid at $35,000 annually.
That's separate.
That is a separate one.
Yeah, I misspoke the other night, Counselor, and I apologize. I didn't have these documents in front of me. There's a $35,000 cash contribution from parking,
That's from the parking coins.
coins and from the
Tickets,
and
whatever.
the dollars that we take in the garage, and the trash we're already paying for. Remember what happened here? Years ago, we had the honor court here sweeping, right? They swept and they took care of the trash, and we gave them free tipping at the dump, and they took care of the trash. They left in, I think, 2001. We struggled to cover that. Remember that I had DPW people doing it and then central services people. Then I finally had the parking division doing the trash pickup every morning and taking it to the dump, and it was costly to us, and it wasn't very efficient. They had to work at an hour that meant that I couldn't have them do some other work that they needed to do. Then we finally went out to contract with the pedal people, which has been a home run. They're great. They're carbon neutral. They do a really good job.
Right after the
They're
storm.
very
broke.
quiet, and one of the issues in the morning when the early morning trash pickup happened downtown for people who live downtown with the truck was that it was really loud. So there's a lot of benefits to the pedal people. We're just taking the money we spent on pedal people and moving it over to the bid so that they can do the contract.
So there's nothing different.
Except for the addition, I want to be clear, we're adding $35,000.
$35,000.
And we are going to buy a sweeper, which we had planned on buying at some point anyway. Okay?
Okay. The main concern I have is, are we using taxpayers'
We are not using tax, property tax, excise tax, personal property tax, state aid, any of that. We are using parking meter receipts. Okay?
Yep.
Councilor Dostal, you were next in the lineup.
Most of my questions have really have been gone over. I was going to talk about the funding and so on, but I would like to say this, that in 1982, when Proposition 2.5 was put into place, I was president of the DPW union. And I was present when the Streets Division was actually gutted. The number of employees that were taken away from the Streets Division was astronomical. And it was in 1982 that the downward spiral of services started. And it has gotten progressively worse. The downtown business people have recognized this. They have recognized that this work is not being done. And they are willing to come up with the dollars to take them out of their pocket and put it into a fund to do the things to the infrastructure that the DPW at one time used to do and can no longer do, not only in the downtown, but we haven't done it in the entire city. We're getting further behind in our roads. It's unbelievable. To me, this is good business sense. People have recognized that they have an obligation to make their life better, and they're willing to do it.
Council Mary Ann Labarge?
Something that you just said, Councilor Dostal, that there's roads that need to be fixed and they haven't been done for such a long period of time. My concern is with the bid, and now we're going to have them taking over and doing certain things. Do we have enough manpower on that?
The bid will make a decision with their board about how many people they need to do the basic maintenance downtown. Right now, shop owners are sweeping their own streets and sidewalks and gutters. They will make a decision about what that structure looks like to keep the downtown clean. Now, years and years ago, and Jim is, or Councilor Dostal's right to refer back, because there was a lot of tension between the DPW and the Honor Court, because the DPW workers felt like that was their work, that the Honor Court had taken over.
Okay, because my concern is, because of what is occurring even on your own ward, like West Farms Road,
Right.
the dangerous potholes, I mean,
But
I'm
this
hoping
isn't-
this is not going to take away
This is
people.
not, no, the DPW will not be involved in this at all. That's the point.
Okay.
That is the point. We're taking a little bit of our parking money and a lot of money that local business owners are putting up, and we're going to use it to provide, they're going to use it to provide those services.
One more question.
Yeah, and then back to Doug.
I would like to just follow up a little bit
Yeah.
on what Mary Ann is saying. For years in capital improvements, and I served 15 years on capital improvements, we have not had the amount of money that the Department of Public Works has requested to fix roads. We have not had enough to stay ahead. We fall behind each year that we're in business there. Every year, we should be doing, as an example, we should be doing 10 miles of road, and we're doing 5. So we're falling behind every year. The state has cut Chapter 90 funds. They have not come back with the money, and things are just getting worse.
Long-term, can we hopefully invest more in our infrastructure? Yes, but the bid is a separate issue downtown that will just deal with downtown. It won't take away from any of the wards.
One more question, and that's
Yeah.
it for me. Now, I've talked with 2 departments, the assessor's office and the tax office. They said that nobody ever came to them in regards to communicating with them about the process of how they're doing this, okay? Say at the 5%, they're doing it separate, which is going to make it very difficult for them in both departments. And especially talking with Joan, she said it would make their life easier if it was all done in one.
I think Mr. Pyle is working on that with them.
Okay.
But the state sets up how this is done. We don't have options locally to change.
So once it's
how things
passed,
are
they
done.
can try to.
They're going to work with Mr. Pyle on how to make that happen.
Okay, because I know when
But
Melissa's.
he did meet with them before this even came before you. And he's here if you want to ask him.
Okay, even Melissa and her group were
Right.
concerned of how they're going to keep this up with 12% cut.
We're all worried about everything with a 12% cut, but we know that this is part of what we're going to do. You know, I'll leave it there.
Okay.
Do you want to answer any of that?
I met with the assessors, I met with the collector at the point where we were developing the baseline structure for all this. We discussed this at length. We've had subsequent discussions on this about how the process will work. The city of Westfield has the same kind of computer system we do. And I know that both the assessors and the collector have been in touch with them, and they've been in touch with Hyannis, who also has Munis. We're looking into how we're going to do it. We have ample time in which to implement this because it won't go on the bills. If you all pass this, it won't go on the bills until the January billing next year. So we've got basically until November to work out all the details on it, but I don't see them as being insurmountable at all.
Okay, Council Murphy, and then I'm back over to Council Spector and then Council Connor.
Just with the involvement of city employees with the bid, it sounds like the only piece of equipment we're going to share is the sweeper, and I'm assuming when we use it, our employees operate it.
Correct.
When the bid uses it, bid employees operate it, so.
We've talked about over time, and I'm talking about a long time, do we buy other equipment, for instance, to help with graffiti? That might be something we might want to do, but we haven't. The only thing we've talked about concretely is a sweeper.
Yeah, but the sharing is not of
Shouldn't be-
employees, simply of hardware.
That's right, it's not employees. Right. Councilor Spector.
One of the issues that came up for folks who were opposed to the bid was that people who were not part of the bid were going to be treated as second-class citizens. And I asked at our last meeting if that could be pointed out. And I was doing that with all seriousness. I've since asked a number of other people, both for and against the bid, if they could point that out. And I just want to see if any, because I haven't felt that I have had any answer to that of how anybody who is not part of the bid would be a second-class citizen. I understand they may not benefit from the bid. They may not thrive from it, but I'm not sure how it will harm them in any way. And I just wonder if, I know that some folks here may have an answer for me to that because they've spoken to people. How might they be harmed if they're not part of the bid?
Councilor Spector, I know Attorney Jesse Adams is here tonight, and I questioned him on that. I said, if you're not going to be in part of that bid because there's a possibility they could opt out of it,
Yeah.
I said, like with the sidewalks or whatever they do, the flowers, he said, no, we will not be part of that. Even though the next business owner will be part of that, nothing would be done with the outside of their property.
I understand that. It was the question of, and it may be legitimate to say, if we're not part of the bid, we've decided not to be part of it, and that by not being part of it, we are going to be harmed in some way. That's what I wasn't clear about when, and I thought maybe somebody here had an answer for me. I've spoken to a number of people and tried to find out ways in which people who weren't part of it would somehow be less well off than they are now.
Okay, looks like nobody has an answer to that. Councilor Carney.
I just want to clarify, and I know that this is accurate from what we've said, but I've had not many calls from folks from my ward, but one call this afternoon that was rather disturbing about, and I didn't get a chance to return the call, but this resident called very upset about the bid, saying that she really feels that this is not the time to raise her taxes, and that this is going to raise my taxes. And she said this was as a result of attending a meeting, last night. So, I know that from my reading of the documents that this is a tax on the property owners who are willing in the downtown district that's been defined. So I'm not really sure if anybody else has had that experience of people being under the misimpression
I have.
that their residential taxes in all other parts of the city will be increased if we were to pass this bid. So
I was approached with that last Friday, both my husband and I, for supper, which I was telling the mayor. And then I got calls today about it again. And we were at Ryan Road School last night attending a very large meeting there. And today my phones were going off the hook about increasing of taxes, that 35,000, the equipment right down the line being residents, taxpayers' money being used for this bid.
Councilor Spector, and then,
Yeah,
I'm
just-
sorry. You still have the floor, then Councilor Reckman, and is Councilor Barzey with your
It's
hand
a
up?
follow-up on the tax question, but, yeah.
Well, what I was going to say, it really is unfortunate. There's so much misinformation and misunderstanding out there about what the bid really means. It really has made it harder for us to come to a quick decision.
Just one thing on taxes, if you look up the Webster's definition, and this is where it gets confusing, we're administering this fee, it's on their tax bill, but in order to be a tax, Webster says it has to be levied and charged by a government. So it's a funny middle place because the business owners are saying, we are going to tax ourselves.
But
The initiation is not coming from us.
But the vote that you do allows us to do that.
Allows us to do that, right.
Exactly.
But they are choosing to do it.
But it's only for the people who are in the bid district, and it's only for the people who
choosing to do
stay
it.
in.
Stay in.
Councilor Barzey?
I want to pick up on the statement that Councilor Ruckman just made about the misinformation and misunderstanding, which is out there, and it is getting complicated. And, that was my main concern when I made the motion to continue the public hearing process, because that's the closest that we come to having a public discussion and exchange. And one of the things, it's ironic that we did the best practices recommendations and accepted that report tonight, because I think one of the things that we acknowledged in that, the various discussions that we had, is that there are different types of public meetings, and they accomplish different goals. And a public hearing is very different than a public forum, which is more informational and allows more of an exchange. And I think we needed more of that public, a debate or a public educational forum on this before we went into the hearing process. And I realized that wasn't our call. But I think one of the things that we can learn from this is I think there really was a need for some public education. And I realized that the proponents did a lot in this area, but this has now become an issue for people who are in all aspects of the city. So I just wanted kind of to note that. One of the things that I would find helpful in terms of what's in the petition and the items under the baseline is if we could ask the finance officer to go through these and identify any other items that might have a price tag to them that we're not aware of. Because I think that's one of the areas of confusion where people think, and I don't need him to do it tonight, I mean, for our second reading.
We're happy to explain to you financial
The impact, yeah, and I think that would
which I
be,
think is zero, but we'll show you why we think that.
but I think that's where some of the
Fine.
misunderstanding is coming from. I want to make it clear that I do not have a problem with the concept. I think it's a good idea. I think it's an idea that could really benefit downtown. And I also want to make it clear that I really understand the dilemma that a number of the shop owners are in. And I spent the better portion of 2 days during school vacation week, which seems like a long time ago, but it was only 2 weeks ago, going around, and I talked to numerous downtown business people, and it was they were all in the same opinion, slightly different perspectives. Some of these own their buildings, some of them rent for building owners that will be joining the bid, some of them not. So they all had a little bit different take, but they all talked about the need for something to be done, that there's been a decline in services in downtown, and there was a need for leadership to move in and fill the vacuum in terms of trying to turn around downtown. And many of them felt that if something wasn't done soon, they could not continue in business. And I heard that loud and clear. So that isn't really my concern. My concern is making sure that I fully understand, and everybody else, the other piece of this, and it's the city's obligation piece. You know, it has been presented to us on several occasions that why would the city would not allow individual business owners to put their money together to solve the problems downtown? And I agree, there's no reason why we wouldn't want to do that. However, there are two different pieces in here that talks about the city's obligation. And I just want to make sure before I move forward and support this, that it's clear to me what those obligations are for the city. So that is where I don't disagree with the point that we have these shop owners who are committed to downtown and really want to invest their own money to improve it. I applaud that. But I'm really concerned of making sure that we have a full understanding of the city obligations in here, that's all.
It's 10:15. I want to know what's your preference now? Do you want to have more debate? Do you want to take a first vote? Which direction do you want to? Sure.
I'd like an opportunity as well.
Okay.
Chamber. Talked to a couple of fellows, they dropped out of the chambers because they raised their dues. It cost them over $200 a year to belong to them. What to do with their money? They could be helping out down here. They could be helping out, but no, they want to bleed us for some more money.
Councilor Narkowitz?
There's a lot of different issues I wanted to talk about, so I'll just try to sort of tick them off a few at a time here. I support the bid. A large portion of it is in my ward, in Ward 4. This is a process that began about, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years ago with essentially sort of a grassroots effort of some property owners, business owners that have taken this legislation. And actually, I disagree a little bit about the best practices aspect of it, because I think one of the things we talked about, one of the findings that we came up with was that, you know, before things reach a decision-making process here, that, you know, it's important to really reach out to all the stakeholders, to really identify the stakeholders. And I know we've heard about that from Councilor Giesland in terms of the rezoning committee, and we've heard about that even recently about things like zero lot lines, that, you know, we need to reach out to people who are directly impacted by these things. And so I think there was a pretty comprehensive effort to contact everybody, contact all the affected property owners, to have public forums, to have one-on-one meetings with people, and also reaching out to counselors to give them a heads up about what they were doing and what their activities were. So I actually feel like, in comparison to a lot of things that we talk about in terms of decision making, I think this one actually, and part of it's just because of the structure of the law kind of forces you to have this sort of grassroots process, because you have to do a petition. So you have to reach out to people and you have to sell people on the idea. And again, it's not the city selling people, it's the petitioners. And it could easily be a smaller group, it could be a group in Florence, it could be a group anywhere in the city that in a commercial district on King Street that wanted to form this type of a commercial district. So I think I think the process in terms of that was a good one in terms of reaching out to people. In terms of our process, our job is to look, at least as I read the legislation, is to examine the petition, to examine how the petition, whether or not the petition meets the requirements. I know we've had a lot of discussion about that. I appreciate the new memo that we received tonight. I had an opportunity to go and go into the city clerk's office and have her walk me through what she did, which essentially she explains in her memo. And again, not surprising to anyone here, the city clerk, very meticulous, very carefully, checking, cross-checking. I'm not sure if people caught this, but there was even an added step. If there was somebody who wasn't a signatory on the property, she actually required that property owner to submit a letter to her saying that they had authority to sign. So I'm very confident, having met with her, that the process that she used on the signatures was sound, and that's one of the things that we have to make sure that the petition meets the form of the statute. The funding issue, I know we talked a little bit about the $35,000 coming out of parking revenue, and I think this is exactly the kind of use that we should be using parking revenue for. The mayor outlined before about how what parking revenue does now already in terms of supporting downtown functions. There's a professor at UCLA named Donald Shoup, S-H-O-U-P, and I encourage people to Google him. He's kind of the guru in terms of parking theory in America right now. He's in demand. He published a great book that's called The High Cost of Free Parking. And actually, we've tried to implement many of those measures in the city, but he basically has 2 points, which are, parking is a important and valuable commodity, and it has to be priced efficiently in order for parking systems to work efficiently. But the other major tenet that he talks about is that parking revenues should be reinvested in the district in which they're collected. And actually, I was going through his book today, which again, it's called The High Cost of Free Parking, and I actually pulled this quote out directly from him. In commercial areas, he says, business improvement districts are the logical recipients for parking revenues. BIDs are special taxing jurisdictions that finance public improvements in commercial areas. He goes on to describe what a BID is in California. These funds are collected by the city and returned in their entirety and are used for purchasing supplemental services. So again, this is a betterment that's being used and being put right back into the very system from which it was derived. So I think it's an appropriate use of those parking revenues. I think those are the key issues I wanted to talk about in terms of the points we've talked about tonight. I think the larger philosophical point, and Councillor Dostal touched on it, and some folks have touched on it in some of their public comments. I think this concept of property owners recognizing a need, recognizing a problem downtown, and essentially coming forward and saying, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, and we're willing to actually tax ourselves, assess ourselves this higher fee in order to make that happen. And I juxtapose that to what we see on the federal level, on the national level, where we're going through this massive economic crisis, and so much of what we hear is about businesses wanting to be bailed out, businesses coming back for a second and third bailout, businesses wanting regulations weakened, et cetera. So I think it's actually refreshing that we have a case here where business owners in Northampton are stepping forward and saying, you know what, we're in this together. This is a situation that we can take control of our destiny, and we're willing to pay for it. So I think that's actually a very admirable thing, and another thing that Northampton can be proud of, and it's one of the reasons that I'm going to be able to support the bid. So that's all I have to say really for tonight, and we may talk a little bit more about it on second reading.
Councilor Bardsley.
Yeah, just 2 points in response to some of the points Councilor Nakowitz made. First of all, around the term stakeholders, I mean, that is commonly used to refer to people who have a direct impact, like property owners or above. But also, I mean, it was very clear in a discussion in best practices that stakeholders is a broader term. And I think when we're talking about downtown Northampton, there's a lot of people who feel like they're stakeholders who are not property owners, that they are, emotionally and culturally invested in downtown. And I think what we have heard through the public comment session is some of those people have felt disenfranchised because there wasn't an effort to outreach on them. They're just hearing about it. And I think that's where the misunderstanding and confusion. So I have a more democratic kind of definition of stakeholders, and it's not just those directly involved, but it's also anybody who cares and identifies with downtown. And I think that's one of our strengths, is we have a lot of people who really feel like they are a stakeholder in downtown, although they don't own property. And the other thing is, I'm assuming in reference to this $35,000 in the parking revenues, that's money that we could have spent directly on similar services downtown and not run it through the bid. Like if we wanted to improve some of the sidewalks or roads around parking and things like that, that could have been a direct expenditure.
Actually, I think to get the same services, it's much more efficient to bring it through the bid.
Well, that's your opinion. I realize that.
That's my opinion.
We're not debating the issue.
We could spend it on parking-related issues.
We could have spent it
Correct.
directly. That's my point.
Yeah, Councilor.
I'll have to respond to those 2 points.
Right. Well,
I'll
you're in
take the
debate.
second one first. No debate. I just want to, I mean, in terms of looking at that 35,000, clearly, we could say, let's spend that directly on something. But you also have to keep in mind, we're essentially leveraging the 35,000 against, close to, $800,000-900,000 of investment in the same sorts of things. So I think that's one of the distinctions. In terms of the stakeholder piece, I understand what you're saying. I was speaking strictly in terms of the processes we've used in the city for whether it be zoning, whether it be for any of the other regulatory processes in that regard. In terms of, though, the issue of there not having been a lot of public education around this, I really feel that's, if you read the legislation in 40O, that's the purpose of why we had the close to 6, 7, or 8 hours of public testimony, and that why we had proponents and opponents here presenting, giving us PowerPoint demonstrations, giving us pro and con information about it, coming back the following week to respond to questions or inquiries that we raised. So I think there had been a lot of information, and all of that information being broadcast live on our cable channel and being re-shown multiple times over the 3 meetings and 6 or 7 or 8 hours worth of public information. So I do differ a little bit in the fact that I do think there was quite a bit of public information being presented, and that's part of our job, was to listen to that, to listen to the public as well as the information being presented. And here we are tonight, considering whether we take a first vote on it.
Councilor Murphy.
Can we have a roll call on first reading?
Are you calling the question?
I'm calling the question.
One more thing. And then we're going to...
I'm sorry if I got you people confused. I didn't do this because of what you're trying to say, this and that. I just wanted to save some jobs, help some guy, if people are poor and they need some help. And if I did that in a crime, I'm willing to go serve 20 days in jail for bringing it to you people. It's a shame for the way you're thinking about. My God, I'm trying to save some jobs and help poor people. And you guys are trying to get around to think I'm wrong, but they can do the job. That's what's wrong. I apologize to you people. Okay, I don't think you stay here till tomorrow morning, you still won't come up with the answer. So I would like to table it till
Tomorrow morning?
any morning. No, not tomorrow morning. I gotta go to church.
Is that a motion to table?
Yeah.
There's been a motion made to table. Is there a second? The motion to table fails. Okay.
All right. I got my point across.
All right, then there was a motion there was a request to call the question with a roll call.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
On first reading.
On first reading.
There wasn't a second.
Second.
There was now. Thanks for reminding us.
Counselor Bardsley?
Yes.
Counselor Carney?
Yes.
Counselor Dostal?
Yes.
Counselor Marianne Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Raymond Labarge. Counselor Murphy.
Yes?
Counselor Narcoitz.
Yes.
Counselor Reckman.
Yes.
Counselor Spector.
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay. So this will come back in second reading.